here with another fun 1E podcast. Today, I'm joined by Joe Brennan, and we're going to talk about MedNow, the Spectrum Health product that is going to revolutionize the way medicine is being done. Virtual medicine, if you will. Nice to see you, man.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So I kind of want to get into it at the highest level of what virtual medicine is, what kind of game changer it is, and how it's going to impact the lives of moms and dads and kids everywhere in Michigan.
Well, at its essence, what we do is bring care to you on the device you use for everything else. So if you think about how your life is and how much revolves around this technology, why wouldn't healthcare be the same way? And so we bring care to you for low acuity conditions. So the cough, cold, rash, flu, things that don't necessarily need a physical exam, or we can use the technology that is built into this for the exam. Those are things that you can choose the time that works best for you, and you can be seen in your own space. So if you are sitting on the couch not feeling well, or you're at your office and you can close the door and have a visit, we're bringing care to you through technology.
That's absolutely amazing and such a great use. So we talked about low acuity, so common cold, things that people are going to run through, especially in this time of year. We're in January. So I don't feel well. Normally I have to go to the doctor to get some kind of prescription, or at least be seen and have them diagnose it. You're saying that I can do it over the phone?
Yeah. So you can download our app, which
Okay.
is the Spectrum Health MedNow app. You open it up. There are 3 steps to sign up. If you've already signed up, it just lives there and you're already good to go. You choose what you want to be seen for, and then you pick the time that works best for you. Other products serve it more as an on-demand, which you have to wait to actually be next in line. We allow you to choose what time works best for you. So if you know you're doing a podcast for the next 45 minutes and you want to be seen in an hour, you can schedule that time. And so when it comes time for your appointment, you just tap a button and up comes a Spectrum Health provider.
So wait a second. I schedule appointments with doctors every once in a while, and I go and I see them, and I'm there on time because I'm a timely fella. That's a joke for everybody that knows me. But I'm there, and then I wait for an hour and 15 minutes. You're saying if I have a 10 o'clock scheduled with a virtual doc, that doc is there at 10 a.m.?
Right on the dot.
Right
So we built the program in a way that there isn't the physician coming in late, or you don't have the waiting room experience. All of the things that you don't like about going to the doctor, when you put it into a virtual environment, that goes away. And so we schedule our providers in a way that if you have a 10 o'clock appointment, you're being seen at 10 o'clock. And so there is no more waiting around, or you get seen when the provider has the time to see you. It's on your terms, in your space, when you want to be seen.
So as I'm thinking about this, I've got a friend of mine. He has triplets, and then because they evidently didn't know how it happened, they had another one, right? So they've got 4 kids under 9 years old.
Wow.
One of those kids gets sick. You got to figure out how to rustle up all 4 kids, go to the doctor, right? And somebody else is getting sick in the waiting room, right? Because that's how that works. They don't have to do that anymore.
Exactly. And you can also do it in the moment. So that child who throws up in the middle of the night, it's happening at 2 o'clock in the morning. Imagine if you could connect to a provider at 2:30. You get the peace of mind as a parent. You don't have to wait until the next morning. Child is taken care of, and you didn't have to bring everybody to the pediatrician.
Oh.
So just to confirm, we see children 3 years and older.
3 years and older, okay.
Yeah, we have Helen DeVos Children's Hospital over in Grand Rapids, and the leadership there informed us that these are not little adults. Children are very different,
Okay.
and so treating children 3 and older makes sense for virtual. That may change, and it may expand, but right now that's what we're comfortable with.
Well, it's relatively new, right? How long has this even been going on?
Well, so telehealth in general is about 20, well, people say it started in the 60s, but realistically it's about 20 years old, but it was clinical space to clinical space with really expensive video conferencing equipment. What changed for us and for other health systems and national vendors is that now 78% of Americans have this in their pocket. And so instead of forcing someone to go into a clinical space and use expensive technology that you had to pay for, it's now bring your own device. And so that shifted what this could look like. So you now already have the technology, and we will bring the care to you. And so realistically, in just the last 3 or 4 years is really where you've seen a burst of activity as it relates to direct-to-consumer telehealth.
That's fantastic. So Spectrum Health out of Grand Rapids, kind of at the forefront of this whole space, right? How come? Why? How did you get the leap? How did you get the jump on other folks?
Well, I think early on we had executive buy-in. There is a benefit to being a fully integrated system. So we have Priority Health having 1 million covered lives within the state of Michigan. We have Spectrum Health Medical Group, which is 1,600 providers that we were able to get feedback and the attention of. And then we have the hospital group who allowed us to learn and get the feedback necessary to build an experience that people liked, but it also made sense. And so being part of that integrated health system was a very good starting point. But this is change. This is very difficult. It's also, most of our time is spent convincing people that this is a good thing. This isn't going to hurt you. It is a viable way to receive care. And so having that executive support, I guess is the best way to put it, throughout this process is really why we've been able to move forward.
It's amazing, right? So somebody or some group of people in the system, kind of visionary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knew that this was going to be the way that it had to go eventually, and said, we're going to double down on it now and lead as opposed to follow.
Correct.
So leading means that you're building stuff oftentimes without anybody else to take a step from. Tell me about that experience.
So that's the challenge. We don't have anything to copy.
Yeah.
It's really easy to build something when somebody else has done it before.
Sure.
And the other thing with the MedNow experience, we built it from scratch. We didn't partner with a vendor. We decided to build it, mainly because we wanted to control the experience, the clinical quality, and frankly, our brand. What is the Spectrum Health brand representative of the experience? And so we decided to build it ourselves. And without a blueprint, there are failures there. There are things that you think are going to be absolute truths. There are things that are going to work so well, and then when you actually put it into production, not at all. So perfect example of that. When we built this, we thought this was a millennial moment. We thought 28 and under, this is who's going to use it. Most likely going to be male. They, more used to doing things on their devices and tech savvy. Couldn't be further from the truth. What we found through now almost 70,000 visits is that there's the concept of the alpha daughter. You have this woman who is the chief medical officer of her home. She tells her husband what to do. She takes care of those 4 children. Mm-hmm. She has a very busy life. And when you provide her something that is convenient and gives her instant access, she's in.
Hi, honey, we're talking to you. She just booked me, and I got a text yesterday. You have a doctor's appointment tomorrow at 10:30. I'm like, I can't do it because I'm interviewing you at this time.
Yeah.
Right? But she took care of it, right?
Now you can do it at 10:30.
That's right.
And so that alpha daughter is also living in the sandwich generation with boomer parents who are now in retirement and have different healthcare questions. And so they go to her to say, well, what am I supposed to do in this situation? She's also the sibling that brother who lives in California and younger sister who's still at college. They all go to her. So you have this one person who is impacting the healthcare decisions of about 25 people. And so we understood that this is now who we should be going after initially. So that alpha daughter is the early adopter, the first person that's really going to embrace this. But it's now spread to where people can see the access and convenience of what this is, and they're using it more and more.
That's fantastic. So I would imagine it's like that old shampoo commercial, right? They use it. They're like, this was amazing. They tell 2 friends. Mm-hmm. Those 2 friends tell 2 friends. So how long has this been live? You said you have 70,000 experiences with it so far. How long has it been out and available?
We started in 2014
okay.
with a very controlled pilot. a partnership with Priority Health for, again, a very limited run. We don't know what we don't know, so let's try something. And we tried. Couple failures, couple successes, and you just fail fast, take what works, move forward to the next iteration. And so 2014 was really understanding what this might look like. 2015 was how would we scale this to people outside of the pilot. 16 and 17 was really getting the word out through digital marketing. And then last year we saw significant growth. As flu season hit last January, we saw 127 people in a single day. We saw 2,700 people in the month of January in 2018. And so what that told us was we've built a chassis that can handle a lot of people requesting it, but more importantly, people are now getting that this is something that is going to help them when they're not well.
So if flu season hit last January, safe to assume that flu season's hitting like now.
It's just starting. We're seeing an uptick.
So it's already starting to hit.
Yeah. So the previous year, 2017, it didn't hit till March.
Okay.
So, and it's not that we don't want people to have the flu.
Right.
We want everybody to be healthy, but it's a really good application. And so that's really where we are most busy is cold and flu season as those winter months begin in January, February, March.
So what actually happens? Talk to me about the process. I log in, I go download the app, whether I'm from the Apple Store or from Google Play, I get the app. What's the app actually called?
MedNow.
So search MedNow, search Spectrum Health, what are they looking for?
Spectrum Health MedNow or MedNow,
okay.
And it will pop up. We tried to make it as easy as possible. Obviously there are other telehealth opportunities, and we tried them all. And we also received feedback from the 70,000 visits that we've had to understand what people liked and what they didn't like. And so we were able to create an experience that gets you to a human being as quickly as possible, which it sounds like the antithesis of what an app should do. It should be all automated and things should all be handled through the app. But what we found is that patients want that human touch. So the concept that we've been living by for years is high tech, but high touch. And if you can blend the two, it gives you an experience that makes it really easy to log in. So if you have an iPhone and you have facial recognition, you can log into our app with your face. If you have an Android, you can use your thumb. So you don't have to worry about login, all of the problems of, what's my password or all that. We made it as easy as possible. And when you come in, you simply choose what your condition is, you consent to be treated, and then you pick the time that works best for you. The other thing that we received from our patients was that they don't necessarily like the idea of a virtual waiting room. Mm-hmm. One of the negatives of going into a doctor's office is waiting in the waiting room. And a lot of other offerings out there have you sit in a virtual waiting room. So you're holding your phone waiting for somebody to pop up. And we said, well, if we're building this and there really isn't anybody else to gauge this off of, why do we even need that? And so we allowed the patient to choose the time that works best for them. And so the concept of this having to be on demand, we found that that's a myth. That's not what people want. They want to pick the time that works best for them. And so you can be seen as early as 10 minutes, but you can be seen as far out as 12 hours from now. Whatever is most convenient for you, that's when you're going to select your time. And instead of waiting for the provider to come into the exam room, that provider is right there when you connect.
So you think the waiting room, they just took the whole, I want to recreate the experience, they just took that a little too literally?
Yeah, well, and I think, again, this is nascent. This is brand new to a lot of people. And so if you're going to build something, well, let's just figure what we did here and we'll put it into a virtual experience. And our argument was, why do we need to do that? And so eliminate all of that wait. You pick when works for you, and then you're seen.
So how does that scale? If you have 127 people show up in a day, but let's say 15 of them want noon, there's many opportunities for doctors to hop in or nurse practitioners, or how does that work?
Well, so that comes up a lot is, do you treat this like an Uber model where there are all these doctors waiting and they'll say, okay, I'm ready, and you pick the next one? That's not how we built it.
Okay.
I would imagine as this grows and matures, that will happen. We use data to anticipate demand. And so we go back from the previous 3 years and say, okay, at 2 p.m. on January 4th, the last 3 years, we've averaged 3.2 visits. So we know we need to have at least 2 providers. And so we try to anticipate. Going into cold and flu season, we also have people on the bench. So if there are 15 people that want the 2:30 slot, we can reach out to people and say, hey, we need you to come on for a 4-hour shift. And so it's treated very much like they staff urgent cares. You have a core group of people, and then if demand rises, then you can bring other people on.
That makes a ton of sense. And so since you used urgent care, you know, we talk about that 2:30 a.m. example, and the kid's throwing up in the middle of the night, and then someone's got to take them to the urgent care or the emergency room because that's all that's open. And the cost of that is significant.
Yeah.
What's the cost of doing it virtually?
Well, if you have priority health insurance, it's a $0 copay.
$0. We can afford that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not bad.
If you have Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, it's the same copay as an office visit.
Okay.
So it'd be the same as if you were going in. The average copay for urgent care in the state of Michigan is $75. The average copay for emergency department is $150. When you look at the $45 price point, if you're not insured at all, you can pay $45 out of pocket for the access and convenience of being seen at 2:30 in the morning. And that's comparable to a lot of copays. And so people, our third largest group is self-pay. People find the convenience of it, or they have a high deductible plan, and this is cheaper than urgent care.
So my daughter is a cheerleader, competitive cheerleader. It's every other month, every 4th month, we're like, oh, sprained ankle, got to go do something. Does that fit into this model?
It does. Not everything is appropriate for MedNow.
Sure.
There are limitations, but sprains and strains, it's similar, unless there's a physical exam required.
Mm-hmm.
But the beauty of this is we can triage.
Yeah.
If you're not appropriate for MedNow, we won't charge you. And so if it's a sprain or strain, one of our providers will be able to say, you know, this is what I can see. I see the bruising and swelling. I suggest you do this. But if your daughter broke her ankle and it's visible, then you need to go to the closest care setting that is appropriate, and we don't charge you.
Okay.
And so it works almost as a triage moment.
Well, and I think that's the important thing, because there's a lot of times as a non-medical professional, yeah, doesn't look broken, right? It looks like it might be a sprain, but honestly, what the hell do I know? You know? So,
you have the one aunt who was a nurse.
Right.
She's retired, and you call her and say, what am I supposed to do here? No,
FaceTime.
Yeah, exactly. Or everybody knows the one physician who answers texts at 7 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
This is an opportunity to, if it's not appropriate, at least triage and have a medical medical advice on where you should go for that condition.
That's fantastic.
So I think as you see this grow, and again, there isn't a doubt in my mind this is where healthcare is going. It's been a tough rock to push. It's been uphill the whole time, but I think this is coming to a point where everybody realizes this is where healthcare is going.
It seems like it has to, and especially from that triage perspective, because I have a sneaking suspicion the majority of emergency room and urgent care facilities are really more on the triage side than people actually needing to be there. Is that? I don't know what I'm talking about, but it seems true.
To represent Spectrum Health well, I don't have a clinical bone in my body.
Okay.
I'm not a physician. I'm not in that clinical space.
You play one on podcasts, though, right?
I do.
Okay, good.
I do. But it's to have someone in the medical profession say, this is appropriate or this isn't appropriate, you should go here, gives you that peace of mind. Mm-hmm. And I would see as this grows, because again, yes, we are ahead of many, but everyone will catch up. Mm-hmm. Our prediction is that more than half of visits will be done virtually. So if you think about, well, I guess the best analogy, I'll just throw this out there to kind of frame it for everybody who's watching the podcast. When was the last time you were in a bank? When did you physically go into a bank?
I've been in a bank within the last 6 weeks.
Okay. Most people answer it's been a long time.
Right.
But when it went from ATM to online banking where you sat in front of a computer.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't quite sure if you transferred your money, is this really going to go where it needs to go? And then it moved to mobile banking.
Yeah.
And that first time you took a picture of your check, you definitely held onto that check because you were certain it wasn't going to actually go.
That's right.
And then now everything is done mobily.
Yeah.
And you don't call it mobile banking. You don't call it online banking. That's how you bank. And if you don't send me something that allows me to digitally sign, I'm going to be frustrated. If I have to physically go into a bank, that's an inconvenience to me. So when you think about what the possible trajectory of telehealth is, if it doesn't require a physical exam or a procedure, why would you go in?
Absolutely. And so it's interesting to me that you had the supposition that millennial males would be the first people to jump in on this. And as a almost millennial male, I only missed it by like 20 years, is like, for me, going to the doctor is like pain, right?
Yeah.
I have to be in significant pain to even show up. Something's got to be really wrong. And I would think I might be more inclined to do this electronically. I wonder if that's actually true.
We hear it.
Yeah.
Hear it quite a bit. You can also tell where the interest comes from a demographic perspective based on what social media campaigns are successful and not.
Mm-hmm.
That alpha daughter, we've been very successful with Facebook, getting the message out. Because again, people don't know this is a thing, and it's most important for us to tell them that it's a thing. Facebook worked really well with that alpha daughter. We can see a trend that they're moving more towards Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And so having a viable Instagram strategy is something that we're working on. But the most male activity we have with our campaigns is through YouTube. And it makes sense. I personally am not on social media often, but I am on YouTube watching a 6-minute video of how I'm supposed to stop this leak in my kitchen sink. And if I see an ad pop up to say you don't actually have to go into a doctor's office for low acuity conditions, I'm going to at least tap it and see what it is because I'm curious. And so we've had our best response from your demographic through YouTube.
That makes perfect sense, right? Because it's all how-to stuff, right? For me, it's knowledge enhancement every time. That's fascinating to me. Well, and the Instagram piece is going to be interesting. So it's just a matter of short videos. Not that we're going to get into the marketing strategy here, but how do you actually attract the people that you're trying to reach? What were you doing on Facebook to get the alpha daughter involved and engaged?
Yeah, without giving away a lot of secrets, we made the campaigns more user-friendly for 15-second clips.
Okay.
My boss gave a really interesting quote a few weeks ago. The average attention span now for a human is 8 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
The average attention span for a goldfish is 9 seconds. We're now to a point where if you don't give me something of value in the first 5 or 6 seconds, I'm gone. And so we knew that we had to build something that grabbed you by the shirt collar in the first few seconds, told you what we are, and then got out quickly. And so creating 15-second clips really allowed us to get the message out that people would actually pay attention to. If you put a 60-second video out there, you stand no chance. And so again, these are things we didn't know. Healthcare marketing is billboards. Healthcare marketing is a postcard that you send to 7,000 people. It is not social media and AdWords. And so Spectrum Health MedNow really had to say, let's shift what this looks like, let's create a digital approach and get to the people who are using our product the most.
That's a great strategy, right? And again, if they can influence and share with other people, that makes it real easy. So very, very cool. And then it's Michigan only, right?
Yep. And that is based on licensure. So it's the law.
Okay.
You must hold a license, as a medical provider, you must hold a license in the state that the patient is physically located.
Doesn't have to live, doesn't have to be residing there, but
you could live in California, be visiting your parents for the holidays, and connect and use MedNow as long as you're physically located in the state of Michigan.
It's interesting. And not to change the topic too far. How do they know? How can you tell? Is it like IP address based on where they're pinging from?
Yeah, so there's 3 layers. You have to agree through the app. When you consent, you also agree that you are physically located in the state of Michigan.
Okay.
So you're telling me.
Okay. And
Second,
people never lie, so that's
Never.
a super
Never.
easy one.
So when you're greeted by a medical assistant, which is another perk of the MedNow experience, they confirm that you are in the state. We also have the opportunity to understand where you are from an IP perspective.
Mm-hmm.
There have been opportunities where people have not been truthful, and they ask that, oh yeah, of course I'm in Michigan, but I need you to send my prescription to the Boca Raton CVS. And so you know immediately, oh, okay, yeah. But it happens much less than you think it would.
Really?
But we have had people who told us that they are not in Michigan. We have to end the encounter, and we're not allowed to actually proceed.
Okay. And so that's very, very interesting. And you said is it federal licensure? Is that how that works?
Both state and federal
Okay.
have laws that there is actually in the state of Michigan, just 2 weeks ago, the Senate Health Committee passed a bill that introduces a compact, which is a group of states that are saying, hey, if you have a license in my state, you can also practice in their state.
So like a reciprocity thing.
Exactly. And so there are 18 states that participate, and it's going through both House and Senate in the state of Michigan.
Is that a good thing?
There are pros and cons.
Okay.
From our perspective, and I'm talking just MedNow, we like our sandbox because we're learning and constantly improving what our experience is. When you allow others to come in, somebody else can come in and say, oh, well, we have a better product and here it is. So it's competition that we wouldn't normally see.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, the benefit is we can reach those priority health members that are potentially living in other states.
Okay.
So we know through Google Analytics and App Analytics that we have a large patient population that travels to both Florida and Arizona during the winter months. If they could see a Spectrum Health provider, why wouldn't we allow them to do that? Mm-hmm. Licensure now says we can't, but this compact would at least get us closer to treating patients as they leave outside of Michigan.
So it'd be great to stay engaged with your current patients, right, and maybe get referrals when they're in different spots, but it kind of changes the flow of who's actually participating in your home state. Yeah, I guess that is pros and cons.
Yeah.
In a big way.
Yeah, so, and again, this is still so new to so many people that we don't really know what this is going to look like.
I don't want to talk too much about the competition, but what does the competitive market look like in the state of Michigan? Are there other players in it? You guys are pretty far ahead, it sounds like.
We are, but I think people are catching up.
Okay.
There is a very robust strategy at Henry Ford.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of really good conversations with them, talking shop. But almost every health system has this on their strategy list.
Mm-hmm.
We have about a 2.5-year head start, but everybody's quickly coming up. Because at the end of the day, this is an expectation of patients.
Well, to me, it's like healthcare is one of those weird things. And I know Blue Cross Blue Shield's a not-for-profit. It's a huge not-for-profit. But that to me, like, not that necessarily healthcare is a right, but it should be something that we're all playing together so everybody can win, right? Yeah. So is it, I said competitive landscape earlier, but is it a cooperative landscape or is it we must pound them into submission?
At the end of the day, it's what is best for the patient.
Okay.
And so the conversations that we've had, we've talked with many health systems in the state, and we've shared some of the lessons we've learned, simply because the further we can all advance this, the better the patient is. Obviously, we're not going to give away everything. We want to have an advantage, but this is where we view healthcare moving. Yeah. And the quicker we get there, I think the better off everybody is.
So I love the idea of the quicker we get there. Is there an actual there, right? Is there like a utopia that this thing, we know we're firing on all cylinders when?
It depends on who you ask.
Fair enough.
we set out, so if you think back to 2014, what were our goals? And the goals were to open up access, keep care local, and lower the cost of care. That third one was the most important. Healthcare is way too expensive. Healthcare this year will be 19% of our GDP.
19.
Yeah. Almost 1/5 of what we spend is on healthcare. It's unsustainable. You can't continue to go at that rate. You will eventually collapse. And so finding lower cost ways to deliver care is the only way we're going to move healthcare in the direction that they need to go. And at a $45 price point, instead of everything required with the physical location and all that goes in healthcare today, if we can move a portion of that virtually, we know we're going to save money. And so that savings, not only directly to patients because it's a lower price point, but healthcare in general saves because of lowering the overall total cost of care.
That's fantastic. So that continues to lower the overall cost, right? Do you think more services get layered on? Can you expand, right? Low acuity is the word you use. Does it bubble out? Is there a next level of what you can actually look at and review?
And so that's where we're going.
Okay.
We started with low acuity primary care. We've always done traditional telemedicine of clinical space to clinical space. We started there.
Okay.
And that continues to grow. And then we built what we're talking about today, which is the direct-to-consumer application for low acuity primary care. Where we see that is the blending. So can I see my physician for my hypertension follow-up? So if I have to come back in 3 months for my high blood pressure, I don't want to actually go in. And can I use the Bluetooth-enabled blood pressure cuff that I have and the readings that go to its app? Can I send that data from the app to my provider so that they know how I've been? So these consumer-grade peripheral devices and the Apple Watch that measures how active I am, can we use these devices and this technology to better inform the provider while we talk via video chat, or even if it's asynchronously? It's just going to not only lower the cost of care, but improve the experience from the patient. And if you look at all of your other apps, they're learning who you are. What are your behaviors? What are your trends? What do you like? What do you dislike? And I think healthcare is going to move in a very personal direction. And we want to push it in that direction. Can we help you, give you a more personal experience so that it's not just treating you when you have a cold, but if you make smarter decisions in how you eat? Or are you sticking to your exercise plan? It's more wellness. Keep you well as opposed to treating you when you're sick. And so virtual, I think, plays a significant part in that. Our next step, immediate step, is our plan to expand for behavioral health.
Oh, good.
Stress, anxiety, and depression is something that partners almost every other medical condition. Mm-hmm. Not to mention, I mean, we are all just coming out of the holidays. It is the most wonderful time of the year, but it's also the most stressful time of the year. And so now you have an opportunity to talk to someone for the stress that you're experiencing, or if you're struggling with anxiety. Again, it has to be like the cough and cold. It can't be something, severe that requires a psychiatrist. But those non-emergent needs, the stress, anxiety, and depression, that's where we're moving to. So in 2019, we're going to provide those services, again, starting in a pilot phase to a small group of people, but then expand it so that everyone can have access to that behavioral health.
Love that. I mean, those are a couple of areas that you just touched on really resonate with me. The wellness factor, right? Because the healthcare the model's broken, right? We should be paying people to keep us well, as opposed to paying people when we're broken. That's bad. But the behavioral side and the stress and the anxiety, we were talking about the idea that little kids are super anxious now, right? And then maybe it's because of the mobile phones, maybe it's because of the tablets and all the stuff they're doing, right? Maybe mom was right 35 years ago when she said, "Don't sit so close to the TV." Oh no, right? But it's kind of cool that's where you're heading in the direction. You mentioned something about the watch. How are wearables going to actually play a role in this? Do you see that continuing to grow?
Yeah. I think that's where, regardless of what industry you're in, everybody points to either Amazon or Apple. They're the ones that are going to change everything. But you see every iteration or every series of the Apple Watch add more healthcare aspects to it. You see what Jeff Bezos talks about as it relates to health. So I think there are going to be more consumer-grade peripheral devices that will help you or encourage you in a healthier direction. And I know this for me personally, I want to achieve those rings. I mean, I understand that it's, I'm one of Pavlov's dogs, but I want that bell to ring. I want those circles to be filled, and it's competition with myself, but I'm not consciously thinking, oh, well, I need to act healthy today. It's, I want to fill my rings. And so these devices that we're all starting to wear are really helping engage people in their health when they previously weren't thinking about it.
I think that's amazing. And so then they'll be able to actually report to the virtual doc and have conversations about what's actually going on right now.
Yeah. So speculation is that they're building in provider contact into Alexa and Google Home, so that MedNow right now might be a precursor to a smart speaker in your home that you talk to about your concern. Again, it's a more cost-effective way to deliver care, but equally as important, it's keeping you healthy as opposed to waiting until you're sick to be treated. And so I think they're just going to continue to improve the way we think about our health.
It just seems so much more efficient, right? I feel like I'd be much more likely to say, boy, I'm at the precipice of something happening. Maybe I should have a conversation about it, as opposed to waiting 36 hours when I'm like deep in the throes of it, and
Well, if you look at, and again, not to pick on the Apple Watch, but they've really enhanced the heart rate monitoring. And so now they can detect I can't even say the word, problems with your heart rate in a way that, maybe we can ping you 6 hours before something might be catastrophic. There might be an opportunity to say, hey, this is irregular. Maybe you need to contact someone for this. They also now have added a fall alert. So if you're someone who is older in age or have a problem with mobility, if you fall, this watch will then notify whoever you say to notify. And so they're constantly adding improvements into what this device can do to help you remain healthy, but also help you when there are problems.
That's really, really cool. And so do you communicate with anybody that's manufacturing wearables? I mean, and by you, I mean, obviously the organization. Are they soliciting feedback? Is there some sort of partnership?
Yep. So we have Spectrum Health Ventures, which is part of the family, and we also have an innovations group who are constantly evaluating tech opportunities and joint venture opportunities. And so those conversations are to say, if we all see this moving forward in healthcare benefiting advancements in technology, how can we use that? And so they're having those conversations.
That's really, really cool. So we talked a little bit about 2019 and what's going on and what the thoughts are there. Can we talk a little bit about the 4 or 5 year plan or what it might look like then?
I would love to.
Yeah.
But if you asked me 2 years ago where we would be, there are things, we just don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
Being out front, you hope that things go this direction, but sometimes they don't. Where I would like to be 3 or 4 years, and this is from a MedNow perspective, is that care is personalized, care is digital, and your front door to care really starts with how you live your life everywhere else. With that being said, disruption comes when you least expect it.
Sure.
And so we don't know what's coming.
Yeah, I guess predictions would be a little difficult, right?
And I've learned to not make them when you're out in front, like we are with MedNow. Being out front, there's challenges in understanding what the next step is.
Okay, that's fantastic. All right, so I think some of the more salient points that we want to make sure people get. One, you can go to the App Store, whether on Apple or Google Play, and download the MedNow app. Right, so start there. Two, if you're in the state of Michigan, whether you live here or just happen to be visiting here, you can actually use the MedNow app regardless of your with Priority Health or Spectrum, right? You're
Correct.
a Blue Cross person, you're somebody else, you can still use this tool. Right?
Anyone.
Anyone.
As long as you're physically located in the state of Michigan.
Just be in Michigan. None of that Boca Raton stuff acting like you're here. Three, this is a significantly easier way for you moms to manage your family. So get on it, right?
Absolutely.
And then four is, I think you probably want to try it. The reality is, and we were talking about this before we started rolling, you have an 8 megapixel or 9 megapixel camera on the back of your phone. So you're worried about how am I going to show off my throat? It's really easy. The technology does it. You can trust this to actually work.
Yeah.
What's I want to talk about, you said 70,000 pieces of feedback. Is it all pretty positive?
Most of it is. Like anything, there's always room for complaint.
Yeah.
But those complaints are how we improve.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
That visit number 1 is much different than visit number 1,000, which is much different than 10,000, which is much different than what we look like today. And so we take all feedback, not just the good stuff, and we look for opportunities to improve what the experience is. Because at the end of the day, patient experience is paramount. If you don't like using this, you're not going to use it again. But if it was easy for you and you had your condition treated and you're off to getting better, you're going to use it again. And so the idea is to have a great patient experience that is most importantly easy to use.
That's awesome. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we did not cover?
I think we covered it. I wish I had a crystal ball to tell you what this would look like, but the experience that we've had with MedNow and seeing that once someone tries it, they can't think about how they would go into an office every time moving forward. I just would encourage everyone to give it a try. Next time you don't feel great, try the app and see what the experience is like and see the benefit of the convenience and access that it provides.
Hey man, thank you so much for being here, being a guest, but more importantly, thanks for leading the way in what I think is going to be a tremendous revolution in how we do self-care, healthcare, and most importantly, take care of one another. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Joe.
Appreciate it.